Welcome back. You're watching Daybreak on Citizen Television. Thank you for staying with us. Now to the insecurity in northern parts of the country. And the president yesterday named Professor Abraham Kithure Kindiki as the Minister for Interior and Coordination of National Government. Here is the profile of the lawyer, and coming up on your screens shortly. In 1998, he graduated with Bachelor's of Laws from Moi University in Kenya. In 2000, he graduated with Masters of Laws from in International Human Rights Law and Democracy, the University of Pretoria in South Africa. In 2002, he got his PhD in International Law, the University of Pretoria in South Africa.
Of course, a lot is expected of this gentleman who is now going to be in charge of the security docket. In 1999 to 2003, he was a lecturer of law at the Moi University in Kenya. And of course, between 2004 and 2005, he also lectured law at the University of Nairobi. In January 2006, he was the head of the Department of Public Law and a senior lecturer of international law at the University of Nairobi.
And he will be succeeding the immediate former CS Interior and Coordination of National Government, Dr. Fred Matiang'i. And Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua yesterday met leaders from the affected parts of the country, and the debate was on the agenda. The agenda was the insecurity in northern parts of the country, calling for the cooperation between agencies of government and the leaders from the region in the mitigation of the impacts of insecurity in the affected parts of the country. Here is what the Deputy President said.
Nobody, no Kenyan has the right to take the life of another. No Kenyan has the right to destroy property belonging to another person. The Constitution is very clear that life is sacred. We have sufficient laws to deal with these matters. What has been lacking is the political goodwill. And I want to assure you that President William Ruto has given a commitment that he'll apply his office and what goes with it to ensure that peace and security is restored and people can go on with their economic activities without hindrance. Children can go to school without fear. And the people of that area can know peace and live peacefully. I want to say I know emotions are very high in Turkana County. I want to appeal to the leaders of that area to calm down and to take heart. And we can only look for a solution when all of us are calm, despite the intensity and the veracity of what has happened. I want to ask the leaders of that county to exercise restraint, to control their emotions, so that we are able to reason together and be able to move on.
All right, the Deputy President there having a sit down with leaders drawn from 6 counties of West Pokot, Turkana, Samburu, Laikipia, Baringo and Elgeyo Marakwet, counties that have been vastly affected with the insecurity situation in the country. We have leaders drawn from those parts of the country with us this morning, and we'd just like to get your perspective into the matter we are discussing. Very quickly, let me start with you, Mheshimiwa Titus Lote. What do you make of the meeting by the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and the leaders yesterday?
I really want to appreciate what the Deputy President did yesterday. It is actually a very historical event because time immemorial, there is no time where the leadership, the political leadership, the national government, the security apparatus have ever met to discuss issues to deal with security. Every time there is an insecurity in our region, either the security apparatus will meet and discuss alone, or the political leaders will discuss alone. Bringing these stakeholders together, for me, was actually a game changer. And for me, I think we are beginning from the right footing, and especially coming the backdrop of what happened on Saturday. For me, I would actually want to say, if this government is committed the way I saw yesterday from the Deputy President, then we are going to change the situation in the Kerio Valley, and I think in this country as a general.
All right. Mheshimiwa Lesuda, this is not the first time such a critical meeting is happening. What's your comment on what happened yesterday?
Thank you, Safin. So First, condolences to the families of those who lost their loved ones, and quick recovery to those who are injured. But most importantly, we have to look at this issue holistically, you know, because it is just a matter of time. You know, so we're called for a meeting. We were briefed yesterday that something is being done. You know, there's probably an operation that's going to take place there. And then after a couple of days, then, you know, normalcy just goes back. And then we wait for the next. This is not the first time we've lost police officers to such heinous crimes. Actually, these are terrorists, you know, where we actually lost 42 policemen. One time in this country.
Baraguay.
In Baraguay, nothing happened. We've lost other, I think it was 12. They continue to just be statistics. Don't forget that every other single day, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people losing their lives. You know, if you put in totality, and even the loss of livelihoods and the poverty that continues to impoverish our people, then it's just like another, you know, terrorist attack, if you look at it. And I will say this, and without fear or favor of any community in the north, okay, for as long as we have guns in the hands of civilians in this country, and it's not just guns, it's M16s, the most sophisticated guns in this country. And this is something we must face as the leadership and as a country. For as long as those guns are in the hands of the civilians, we will do whatever we have to do. We will continue to hold our meetings. We will continue to have these conversations time after time, because there will always be something happening. So, of course, now, after what had happened, those criminals know that the next thing is that you'll come with an operation and they're going to run away for some time, come back, those guns are still there. And so we'll get later to what needs to be done. But for me, okay, this is not something that will be solved by just 1 meeting, 2 meetings, 3 meetings, okay, or just 1 operation, 2 operations. This is something that the government, including ourselves, the politicians and everybody, have to commit to end. And the first thing will be, how do we get rid of these firearms from the hands of citizens? Okay,
and not just firearms, but you have mentioned M16. I mean, it brings out the complexity and the extra layer of complexity to that cause. I'll be seeking specificity because there's a driving factor to it as to how they have accessed M16 rifle. It isn't meant for, I mean, civilians, and can therefore be just one that will end up in the hands of civilians. Honorable Makilap, what's then the status, for example, in the constituency you come from in Baringo North and largely Baringo County?
Thank you so much. First, let me express my sympathies and condolences to the families who have lost their breadwinners and the citizens who have lost lives. I am a victim. I have just lost a neighbor. A young man was employed 4 years ago. Very young children, very young wife, and I was just actually coming from there. It is so devastating. So, pole sana kwa jamii yao. Secondly, in relation to yesterday and coming back to what you've said, I think for the first time, it is not going to be business as usual. We have a very serious president in charge, and we have a very experienced deputy president on matters security and administration in charge. And I want to appreciate what the other honorable member is saying. This is the first time members are sat down together with security people and told, keep us the solution. And I agree that for the first time, we as leaders from the North Rift must be held accountable. Because honestly, who brought us to power? In those areas where there are those criminals, they also voted for the leaders who are here. If they were able to convince them to vote for them, they can also go back and convince them to stop this nonsense. So I want to agree that the Kenya Kwanza government led by His Excellency the President, William Ruto, will stamp out this banditry business. And I want to ask people of Kenya, this matter is not about cattle rustling. Okay. You know, when you take it as cattle rustling, you miss the point. Cattle rustling is a means to an end. In fact, it's not, it is actually terrorists. And from where we sit in Baringo North, this is an expansionism Like in Baringo North, we've lost from our border territory to Baringo North, we've lost about 20 kilometers in strategic areas where there are minerals, pasture, and water. Similar to Samburu, similar to Turkana, similar to Baringo South. In fact, Baringo South have lost close to 60 kilometers from their initial border to where now people have been displaced. So this country and the new administration must not look at this thing as cattle rustling. Because honestly, if you are interested in stealing cows, why don't you steal those ones that are inside?
Okay, but wonderful. To just seek some clarity before Safin comes in and tackles the human right element.
Yes.
You have talked about a serious president.
Yes.
And a deputy president with a deep understanding,
yes,
having served in the civil administration.
Yes.
But how will their understanding then arrest what's now appearing to be a thorn in the flesh of the government? And how will their understanding therefore end the perpetual continuity of what has been a problem and also in previous regimes in the country?
Thank you so much. First of all, William Ruto, the president of Kenya, almost became a victim in 2017, and actually a chief was killed very close to in a place called Bartabwa, to where he was having a baraza. Our chief was killed 1 kilometer away, and he made a lot of effort to bring in the NBRs along those areas that are hostile, that we've had conflict. But what happened? All the efforts that he wanted to put in place to restore human dignity and population were all, the NBRs were taken, everything was, all the efforts that he made was reduced to zero. So this is why I'm saying, this is a serious Kenyan, and he promised Kenyans that this business of banditry in the north must come to an end through many ways, dealing with the situation of the bandits themselves, and following up with development programs that will actually change the economic matrix of the people of the north.
Mheshimiwa, that's why we're here, and we will talk about those proposals, because you come from those regions that are affected.
Yes.
What will work?
Makala affected even here.
So, as
even
you
when I'm here, I'm suffering.
You come from Turkana County. Just the other day, if I'm not wrong, there was the commemoration of 49 years of the Lokiriama Peace Accord, and we know the history of how that peace agreement was signed. And then on Saturday, we see headlines that 11 people have been killed in the same county, 8 of them police officers. As a human rights defender, what are you reading from this trend of these attacks? What is it that we are not doing?
I think one of the things you have to recognize that the Lokiriama Peace Accord was a lot of individual efforts, community efforts, not government knee-jerk operations. As of now, 2 days ago, a team from Nairobi has driven into Turkana, the usual drive-in with all the armored vehicles that the local security forces do not have. They will come in. As of now, Kamuge Hills, where the incident happened, there's nothing happening. Everybody's left, as Laisuda has said. Everybody has left. So we'll keep running in. We had operations in last year. We had operations this year in Kapedo. Everyone moves, everyone comes back. So I think one of the things to note is that the borders are very porous. So if you look at the Lokiriama issue, it is a Uganda-Kenya issue. If you look at South Sudan and Turkana West, again, another porous border. If you look at Ethiopia-Kenya, again, another porous border. So as much as everyone just sort of says, oh, cattle, banditry, disarm, but you cannot disarm when you cannot assure security. There's absolutely no way you can constantly see people packing up their things and moving, and there's absolutely no security, and you keep telling them, disarm. And this is the saddest part, because we've seen this happen. Even myself, this year, in February, I lost about 370 shots. My own. I went to the police, and I said, following the law, I have lost, they've been put a mark on the neck. Please follow it, they've gone this direction, because the herders said which direction they'd gone to. And the police said, they went to the press and said, only 50 animals lost.
Okay.
So as much as, yes, there is efforts to achieve the peace, we can only request so much of peace efforts when the government assures of security. We cannot talk about peace because we NGOs will go out there and make proposals for peace, but at the end of the day, it is the role of government to provide security. All
right. We cannot talk about solutions without understanding the root problem of this. I want to understand from you, leaders. Let me start with you, Mheshimiwa Lesuda. What is it that you term as the biggest driving factors to the perennial problem of insecurity in the northern part of the country?
So, and honestly, what I said earlier is that, you know, what we've been seeing a lot is that we're just treating, you know, the wound, then we put a bandage, you know. Every time we're just putting a bandage. It will take the decisiveness, and if Mheshimiwa Maklap is serious here, saying that this government is actually very serious about it, if it will mean we cut off, you know, sometimes you amputate so that it heals, you know, to take very serious action, and we will talk, and I'll give some of the suggestions. We will have to do it no matter how painful it will be to our people, no matter how difficult it will be for us politicians to accept, so that we deal with this issue once and for all. But I want to answer your question and say this, that what my sister here has said is that, you know, so one community always feeling we're not safe, so the others have guns, so, and government is doing nothing, security officers are not doing anything to protect me, so what do? Sell one bull, you know, a gun I hear goes for about 70, 80,000, go get the gun and things like that. Of course, we can't refuse that also. The cattle business is part of it, because that also happens. They steal, and, you know, we've seen, you've done a lot of investigative, you know, stories of the whole issues about cows and goats. That one is there. And then there's just even purely just hatred within our communities. Samburus just don't like Pokots. Pokots also just don't like Turkanas, and you know what, so I'll just come and shoot you and kill you. There's the issue of expansion, what Mheshimiwa has said. So you know what, I think we always fight about some border. You know, some are even imaginary. So you can never cross here, and if you cross, there is no talking. We just shoot you, you're dead, you go. Also that you, as guys, we live in very hot, dry, and fertile places. You guys live in better places. Also, we can just come and graze. And you know what? We will not come with sticks that we're herding with. We'll come with a gun. And if we refuse that we had, we'll shoot you and herd there. So it's a very complex, you know, sometimes, and you have to agree with me when I saw the Deputy President also trying to say, this is a small matter, we'll just finish it, you know, I'll not even leave it for the President. Okay, maybe he's very optimistic. But please let us not just dismiss it as, you know, and this thing of just saying that it's a small matter. It's a complex, serious issue, what has been said about the porous borders, Nini. So we have to look at this issue holistically, where this guns coming from, who is selling these guns, so how do the locals within also feel protected, those who live at the border. So it's a very complex issue, and we can't just say at this thing, we will just, this small things, we will just finish, tutamaliza. It's good to have that attitude that we want to finish it, but just don't dismiss it as a small issue.
Honorable Lotte, then I come to you. What Ikal and Honorable Lesuda mentioned is the place of the government's major responsibility, protection of lives of the Kenyan people. And she said, if you want to disarm, then there's that security. Without that, then one will feel insecure. He'll hold on to the guns. And Honorable Lesula mentioned that one is disarmed, the other isn't, therefore creates the unease amongst the communities, extending the animosity. Does the government understand the veracity of this problem, and on why then this level of insecurity in certain parts of this country, yet the main role of the government, because it's the people who are called the power, is to protect the same people? Why isn't that happening?
Well, I want to agree with what my colleagues have said, and I think it is a very complex issue, this one of cattle rustling. And unfortunately, every government, from the first government, have actually treated this with a lot of disdain. I don't think the government, any of this government, have ever actually taken this as a serious matter. And I think this cattle rustling issue has given this country a very bad image. I will actually try to mention, even before I actually go to answer your question, some of the reasons or some of the underlying causes that might have caused or is actually causing this. I think one of them has actually been mentioned by my colleagues. They have actually said the issue of the porous border. If you look at the entire north, there is a lot of porous border, and unfortunately, there is nothing that is being done. I come from a border where I border the whole of Uganda, the constituency that I represent. As you go into Uganda through any of the entry points, you realize that the Ugandan border are being manned, including the walkways. You get a security person, a Uganda security person on the border. The Kenyan side, there is nothing. There is absolutely no security at all as you go into this particular place. So one of the things is we get a lot of guns coming from Uganda. We get a lot of guns coming from Southern Sudan. And the reason why my sister here talks about very complex guns, because there's a trade. There is no other trade in this place. So I think unless we start manning our borders the way our neighbors are doing, then we might still be missing the points of us saying it is a small matter. It is not a small matter. It is giving this country a bad image. We are here today to discuss a matter that we will have actually done away with. We will be discussing development in this particular studio.
Did you pick up with the Deputy President yesterday? Because it's a key issue. Did you pick up with the Deputy President during the meeting?
Yes, we did pick up with the Deputy President, and I think he committed and said, because the matter is complex, he will want to sit with the teams individually. And he said he's going to deal with all the 6 counties in 3 days. And that basically means the Deputy President has taken it a notch higher from what we've seen before. So the second one is the aspect to deal with selective treatment from government. And these are actually been continuing. And unless we start treating these people together, I think we will still be missing the point. For example, the reason why the guns were taken from the NPRs was the people in government would provide guns to one community and not provide to the other community. And when the other community realized that those that have guns are from the communities that they perceive to be their enemies, then they will arm themselves. So if we remove the NPR guns from everybody, that will be solving the issue. And also then, if after removing the NPR guns from everybody, then we mop out the illegal guns. My sister said, as long as there is an illegal gun in the hands of the civilians, we still have an issue. Right. So we've removed, first of all, the guns, the NPR guns, and we removed the guns from the illegal. I'm not finished. I'm not finished.
I see the body language.
Okay. I know. I'm actually bringing it up. I am actually also coming to the issue of politicization of the whole issue, where we actually politics a lot. You find that the politicians are actually speaking about insecurity without putting a lot of efforts to ensure that there is security. I am a security expert. I have actually gone through training on this. And I think the best thing that we need to do in issues to deal with insecurity is to become neutral. If you listen to what the Deputy President said yesterday, he said, I know there is a lot of emotions, but I'm asking for calm, because when there is no calm, there is no solution. And I think politicians have always been coming, and that's the reason why you find the body language here. People come with a lot of emotions.
Well said,
and when you come with a lot of emotion, you lose your focus.
Well said.
And you actually lose to know what needs to be done at that particular time.
Now
the other one, actually, I think the other one, I have a lot of issues to deal with this, is the issue to deal with total marginalization. Yesterday we were told, for example, in a place called Tiati, 6,000 kilometers square, we only got 2 police posts, probably with not more than 50 police officers. Who is manning this place? And this is just one example. I know in Baringo North, if you go to Samburu, if you go to Laikipia, if you go to Isiolo, all this north is actually left not manned by any government officials.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mheshimiwa, now that you brought in the politics into this and you've talked about how disastrous this can be, there's also the other side to it. And I'd like for you, Mheshimiwa, to respond to this. Some say that politicians also play a role sometimes in abetting certain attacks, funding attacks, especially during electioneering season. We see this a lot. How true or false is this, and how has this made the problem worse from where you sit?
Thank you, Savin. I think I want to set the record straight to my brother who says he's a security expert. I think that security expertise from his side is almost misleading. Let's look at this background, and I wanted this country to understand. This thing graduated, the cattle rustling was a traditional cultural event where people were, if you want to marry in those pastoral communities, you go and look for cows. even sometimes without killing, and it is prohibited from killing women and children and that kind of thing. It graduated over the years to commercialization and now having wild ideas of expansionism theory to where it is today. And let's put the record straight. There is no can which will wake up in this table to go and shoot people. We are dealing with a mindset. What we do with the head, with the brain and the soul, so that you don't pick a can and go and shoot people. In this city of Nairobi, there are so many cans, but people don't shoot themselves. But that means there is a problem mentally here, mindset. What is it that makes you wake up, pick a can, go chase somebody, bring his cows, kill someone? That is the first thing that we must do.
Then who is driving the mindset? Because the mindset is instilled, Honorable. Who is driving that mindset?
The mindset is driven by, practice. In the north, children are born, they don't go to school. After a certain age, they just could become wild. They live in the bush. There is no shelter. There is nothing. They don't go to school. They even don't have IDs. So that person grows up to become a jungle man. So to him, he only knows one thing, a gun. And he knows that when I use this gun, I'll get something. But now to a state where now the elites today in those areas are using those primitive people to go and kill people. Them, they are knowledgeable. They know what they want. But they are using these ones to achieve an end.
So allegations that some politicians, in some instances,
yes,
are they true?
Yes, I want to say that is true. And I want to set the record straight. Lotte says that there is favorism in dealing with communities and NPR is mopping out. Let me tell you, in Baringo North, the Turkana people, all the way to Lamayo to Mochongo, we don't have guns. So the best way the government would have done is to ensure that we are protected by giving us NBRs. How do you hurt NBRs to people who are extremely armed than the government on top of the other guns? But you see, the system that was, where the deputy president, then the president now, was he gave NBR to both sides of the coin. But now, to some of us who are vulnerable, whom we don't have guns, the best way was to equip us with NBRs. So the question of removing NBRs is actually making some of us lesser. So let's get that record straight. To the issue of politicians, it is true. It is true. Some people are brought into power to become members of parliament, governors, and so on, by using insecurity as actually the captains of insecurity. So when it comes to elections, they keep all manner of things to the bandits to achieve an end. And you see, once you have done that, you are seen as an hero. Okay. And you are protected. And and I am telling you, this kind of thing, if it is not arrested now, as they have said, all of them is a complex issue. It's not a wake-up call today and you finish tomorrow. No. This is something that has happened since I was born. I knew there was insecurity. So it will take time. Okay. It will move from removing of the cans, dealing with the culprits themselves, to now changing the economic matrix of the local people and bringing development to those areas. Because now, even if you want to do operation today, where will you get those people? Okay. Because the Askaris, let me tell you, the Askaris will move along the road. The bandits and the terrorists, they are not on the road. They are in the bushes. The Askaris will enter an armored carrier. They cannot come down out of the armored carrier. Okay. So how will you get those cars?
Okay. Noted.
So we need to do more.
Okay.
Yes.
Amongst the proposed solutions, of course, and we'll be getting to the place of the devolved system of governance, because that's ideally why we had devolved resources for economic and development empowerment for people to, as you have said, get away from that mindset, the paradigm shift needed for them to understand the need and how sacrosanct lives of people are. Coming to you then, Ikalangile, it's unfortunate we lost service personnel, police officers who are in the line of duty, and people as well, our Kenyan colleagues who we share nationalism. But is it not concerning that this is a level where human rights violations are happening at a record pace? I mean, when you lose people in such short span of time, what's needed then going forward?
In July, end of July, women and children were locked in their houses and burnt in Napeto.
True.
It was a political time. Most of the aspirants and the politicians went in, took photos, social media, looking for the votes. Some are still in hospital, and those children right now, as schools have opened, they don't know what to go back to in school. And you cannot just talk about primitive. You see your own people being killed as a child, and it sticks in you that the enemy is the other person, because you see your livestock lost, you see your parents killed, you see your home burnt down. And nobody talks about the psychosocial. These kids are just told, wake up. I remember a few years ago in Loyangalani, people were killed and thrown into a school. And former President Uhuru said a very sort of brushing statement about it. So we've seen a history. P.S. Kibisho mentioned and said, let them be farmers. Very brushing statements that we've seen with people in authority saying, and yet no one really says lives are lost. And so it's always a cattle race. Even the media itself just says, just brushing statements, but really lives are lost and lives are impacted with such incidences.
And that's why we have you to discuss the importance of those lives.
Yeah, and so for us from a human rights perspective, but also from a community person, that I have seen this from childhood, So I think I got into this work because I walked into an after ambush and I found a dead mother and the baby was suckling on the mother while, the mother is dead. And the baby's there crying, trying to suckle on a dead mother's breasts.
All right. Mheshimiwa Lesuda, you've spoken very passionately about this subject on Twitter. Even just yesterday, you were challenging the new administration to take the bull by its horns and just do something urgently about this. Just tell us more about what you think is the strategy that is going to end this once and for all.
So, I'm talking from my own experience where we took an initiative as professionals, and that's how I quit my job in the media and went to deal with this issue, the mindset. And, we used to go with, we looked for our Pokot professionals and we went together in one bus and went and talked to our people and said, look, in Nairobi and in other areas, us guys are just chilling. We're like this, as in, there's no problem. And guys were like, oh, okay. So kumbe Samburus and Pokots, you can actually have a conversation. And it was a long process. We dealt with it for a whole year, actually, I think 2 years. Where now there's some calm and some lull. And that's what I'm saying. For as long as there are guns, we will always have some peace, and then the criminals will always hit. And there's also a very serious issue here, where it's always revenge. So someone does something, nothing is done, so my cows are gone, lives are lost, no action is taken, no one is brought to book. So what do I do also as this community? I go and take, action myself. And so it continues to become a vicious cycle. And so what I said and my position is this. And my advice would be this. For me, Naisula, to be convinced that the Kenya Kwanza government is serious on this, we now have an advisor on security, national security, that is Monica Juma. We have seen this work in Uganda with Karamoja, the whole, so that we'll not even be reinventing the wheel. Put up a team that every morning, every day, as I said, we can't finish this issue in 6 counties, in 1 day, in a week, in 2 weeks, in a month, in a year. It might even probably take us 20 years, 20 or 30 years. And so let us have a team. And I'm not saying employ new people. Get teams from, the already existing agencies that are involved in this matter. We have to have intelligence there. We have to have intelligence to know that a certain community is planning A, B, C, D, and not community, criminals. Actually, we should call out these people for criminals and terrorists and not communities. Okay. So intelligence to be roped in. We have security to be roped in. We have political leaders roped in. And political leaders, we say, you know what? We want to start afresh. We can, I know it is difficult, it is painful, but let us walk this journey together. Let us have development partners. Let us have the human rights people. Let us have a team that is sitting every day to look at this matter. As I said, it is complex. So it is a matter of security. It is a matter of security and people feeling safe and secure in their areas. So we will have issues like NPRs being looked at, and NPRs are good because you're involving the locals to see that, because they know the terrain and all that. I'll go very quickly and finish. So that you look at the issues of security. You look at issues of peace, where now the communities leave this bile and just whatever, so issues of peace will be encompassed. We will look at the issues of these young people, young men, we call warriors, who have never gone to school. What do we do with them? How do we give them an alternative? Do we take them to NYS? Can we use their skills to go to Jeshi, police, everything? We have to think about it critically. What do we do to the widows, the socio-economic? What do county governments and us who have NGCDF and the national governments do to build more schools, boarding schools, deliberately saying that a chief will actually track a mother.
Okay.
And when you give birth to a boy, I will track and make sure that boy goes to school.
Okay.
If they don't go to school, we will have a problem. Lastly, socio-economic, to empower these people. How do we do it? How do we open up the security roads? You will be surprised. Let me tell you, I went to a place in Tiati. I swear you go there, you don't think you're in Kenya. You know, they even have their own, they have their own MP, they have their own chief, they have their own system of things going on there. They are not, they don't even know what's going on in Kenya. How do we reach these people? How do we open up that road? How do we do a school there? And so that's why I was saying we need to have a multifaceted thing, and it looks simple to say this, and actually put where it's called what? Put our word to it in terms of put the resources there. And I'm sure there are also other development partners who will want to work with us.
All right.
And this will take years to do, but if we are serious and committed, please let us see it. But if we have security people doing their own things there, Mimi and my peace efforts, I'm doing my own thing.
But are you
briefly before I need
on the intelligence thing, I must say one of the biggest things before this incident of Mary happened, the GSU actually called to inform that they needed a helicopter. We've had 3 incidences where intelligence is given and they say 600 people are coming. They call Nairobi and ask for a helicopter. And what the helicopter does comes to pick the bodies after the incident. So on the ground, the security officers actually get some intelligence and send it out that we need help. The problem is when it gets to Nairobi, whoever decides what to do, it happened the same way last year. We just keep seeing, we actually get the WhatsApp messages. I got WhatsApp messages of what's about to happen. And they are sent out to Nairobi and they said they're on the way. 36 hours later, no response.
Okay, interesting. Honorable Lote and Makila, let me come to you. And at the best interest of time, we need to run through this because Honorable Lesuda proposed solutions.
Yes.
Now, 2 questions, and I'm coupling them up very quickly. Communication channel. For example, Ikal talked about the needed helicopter, but that came, unfortunately, to pick their bodies instead of transporting them. 2, the other communication channel that you leaders need to develop with the people, not to the people, and establish symbiotic relationship as to information flow. How will you establish that to address this problem?
Thank you so much. To bring it quick, 1, we need communication masts in that region. There are places where you cannot access by any form of service provider for communication. No network. 0. 2, facilitate the security officers in the North Rift, in Baringo, Turkana, Tiati, West Pokot, Marakwet. Facilitate them properly so that they have... In fact, yesterday we proposed 3 helicopters. 1 to the standby in Baringo, another one in border between Tiati and Samburu, another one in Turkana for rapid response, so that we are able to hit a target, and even using drones so that we are able to, see those kind of things happening immediately, so that for prompt action. Yesterday, we witnessed a very bad incident when in the office of the Deputy President. One governor says, you stole our cows last week. The other one from Isholo says, it is because you have stolen ours 20 times.
So we have stolen you.
So we have come to steal. So it is a revenge. It's a revenge. So now, one of the solutions that quick solutions that we can do to deal with the mindset, 1, instead of even going for disarmament of guns and so on, I'm not saying we must go for it, but the first thing is let us get all children, for example, in Teati, school, all school-going children this age. Let the police who fear to go to the bush take care of those children in a camp to read for 8 years, if this system of education will continue. Without going home, let them get enough food, wear clothes, change the mindset of that person, and there is a pastor to preach the word of God, and so on. So you will change the soul and the mind at the same time. After maybe 8 years, that person, when you release to the bush, he will not become a cattle rustler or a bandit because he's used to good life in school. So there are so many. So mop up all the children, operation, mop up children of Teati and the entire North Trip, back to school, provide food, uniform, pastor, because there is even some wards, there are places where there is no church and there is no sound to school.
Okay.
So that is a quick...
School and security, because it is in the same county that some students were killed. They were targeted and killed in some
schools are there,
Baringo
but
County.
still...
But now we are saying, you see, let's put these children in school and provide security in their compound so that we can be able to deal with their mind and the soul. So when you release these people to the population, they don't have that negative attitude of being a wild person. The other thing is, once that is done, you now deal with the Minister of Development, the infrastructure in that region, open up that region, change the economy. Let's have irrigation schemes in that place so that, for example, in parts of Turkana where they have started the irrigation scheme along the Turkwell and the other places, the people are actually so happy. And that places you don't use fertilizer. That place is very rich. So we need, once you identify it, isolate it, and remove the guns, bring back your children to school, and even, for example, let me just give a quick solution. Okay. Why don't you have children from Turkana being in a boarding school in the border together with Pokot and Turkana at the same time, so that when you want to attack the other community, you have children together here. Okay. So it's a safety net.
Okay. You said you're a security expert. I also want to look at some of the solutions you have on the table for this issue.
I was bringing solutions.
In pointing out the driving factors.
I pointed out some driving factors, and time was not on my side. I think one thing that I want us to admit here is this failure of government. The government has actually failed. And just to correct what my colleague Bana Maklaba said, is that the government is aware that there's a community that has guns, and then the government is harming the other community. That by itself is a wrong way of dealing with it. If that is what the government has been doing, I think we need to correct that. What the government needs to do when a community has guns is to mop out that guns, not to arm the other community so that they fight. Because that is what I've heard from him.
To be clear, arming the entire community or members of the...
he's actually...
that's what we want to know.
Hang on.
Yes.
I mean, when you say arming the community, there are more than 40 communities. Is it members of the NPR or the community?
NPRs are members of the community. Okay. So if you arm the NPR, you are arming that community.
But the government is arming people it knows, not the entire community.
Not the entire community, but the NPRs. Of
so
course,
if we say that
Kenya, if we say that Kenyans, we've got our security apparatus, and so we are actually protected. It's not that every Kenyan's got a gun. It's the security apparatus that have got guns, so they represent Kenyans. So the NPRs represent a community. So if the government is actually taking gun to a community, to the NPRs within a community, it basically means they're harming that community because they want that community to use those guns to protect themselves.
Honorable Lotte, let's be clear.
Yes.
Let's be clear, and because of time we need to run through.
Yes.
When we have, for example, the Inspector General of Police hierarchy, until we have the chief in the location.
And the NPR.
They are armed. These are people who are armed, courtesy of the taxes we pay. Just hang on. Yeah. They bear the instruments of power, violence, and power. And they represent a country called Kenya.
Yes.
Not the specific communities they come from.
Sure.
So by arming members of a community by arming NPR from members of the community, the government is arming people it knows, not the community, to be clear.
Yeah.
That is a point of understanding. Okay. They are arming the people that they know that needs to protect the community. Because the reason why NPRs are given guns is so that they're able to protect the community. I think we are now on the same levels.
Yeah, proceed.
At that level, then we are now at the same level. Okay. What I was saying about this is, if the government is aware that there's a community that has illegal guns, what the government needs to do is to mop out those guns and not to actually then give guns to NPRs of the next neighboring community, because at the end of it all, these guns will actually be in the bush. Then, this is my point.
Okay.
The government has failed. What Angele has said is critical. Before this incident happened on Saturday, I got one person yesterday who told me that 20 hours before the incident, there was already a circulation of about 400 young men moving to actually raid. And if NGOs, if government commission like NCIC are aware of such things and the security apparatus never did anything, if you look at the vehicle that those security people were using, they were not government vehicles. They were vehicles that were donated by citizens, including the lady that died, unfortunately, and I'm sorry for that. That tells you that the government is not serious. What we actually see, the helicopters will always go to collect bodies. They will always do this. I went to Uganda, and to give you this as a critical example, I actually talked to security people in Uganda, and one person actually impressed me. He was an intelligence officer from Uganda, and he told me he wanted to get leaders that they can work with and track some people in Kenya, because they are aware, they know their names, they know what they do, and they say, if we can be able to track these people, then we'll cut the supply of guns. But if you come to the Kenyan side, we were told yesterday that the security intelligence people in Kenya are actually dining and drinking in bars with the citizen and telling them that we are security people. What are they doing? Nothing. They're actually doing nothing. I think unless we invest in our intelligence, unless we actually act on our intelligence, we will always be in this particular situation. So I want us to start saying, like the rest have said, it's important. Security is important. That intelligence information is very critical.
Sorry to cut you short. Mheshimiwa Lesuda, I want now to get practical commitments from you leaders. It could be based on what you've done already or what you plan to do going forward.
So I will say this. I am committed to peace. As a political leader, I stand for peace, even when it's my community that has done wrong, and I stand for peace when my community has been done wrong. But I want to put this into context, and for Mheshimiwa probably to understand just a little bit on the issue of NPR. It's actually in law. It was brought by Honorable Alois Lentomaga in Bunge. It is actually a perfect concept. In collaboration, it's not a community issue. These young men are identified. People are vetted, you know, in terms of their conduct and everything. They're vetted all the way, everything. They're vetted. But we're saying they understand the terrain better. They know the area better, and they work with the security officers. The reason why we had a challenge last time a bit, and some of the NPRs were also disarmed again, was because they are not well remunerated. You know, so someone has a gun as an NPR, they have no small allowance or something to fend for their families. What will they also do with a gun? They join part of the criminal syndicate or activity. So Mimi, I want to cut the hand and we heal. So let's do proper NPR in the entire region, the 6, identify, let the community NPRs work together, both communities, Samburu and Pokot and all, so that these people are working like police. They're not defending my community, so that even if livestock is stolen and it goes to my community, the Samburu NPRs will go and follow and return. You understand?
Yes.
Then bring to us National Assembly. We approve. KDF, go and take those guns. Let me tell you, of the criminals, then NPR do the work of securing. Why should we be saying at the children to go to class and be secured by police to go to school? We mop up children, we put children in a school, and then we put police to protect our school. Because why? Because some criminals are running in a country, in this country, like like we live in Sijui, which country?
We understand the passion that you have for this, but we are closing for your closing remarks.
Thank you so much. My closing remarks.
And that is on the commitment, Honorable.
Yes. Personally, I am committed for peace. My community has never, ever raided anybody or went ahead to kill anybody. We are an example. The Turkana people are an example of peacemakers in Kenya. And I am committed for peace in this country so that we can realize the development that we want. I am also in this new regime or new government for compensation of families that have lost lives and lost property so that they can be able to bring up their lives like another citizen. And lastly, incentives for NPRs. Let's give them some remuneration, and that's why the Deputy President said yesterday, let's work with the county governments. There is a provision in law where the national government and the county governments can play some synergetic roles so that these people are facilitated so they don't have the intention of again turning out to become criminals. And lastly, I want to say that if government was able to deal with SLDF in Mount Elgon, if they were able to deal with the group in Coast, they can be able to deal with the criminals in the North Rift. Government take charge and bring sanity in the North Rift. Thank you.
Yes, Angele.
So for me, it's using the Nyumbakumi initiative. We have the crowds. So it's mapping out those crowds and working with the crowd leaders, because it is critical to recognize that there is already existing information within these crowds. So that's the first thing. I agree with everybody around the NPRs. We have to get back to allowing NPRs to do their work, but working collaboratively. And lastly, I think when the president was speaking during his speech, he said that they devolve of the security side. So let's not keep it at Harambee House. Let's devolve resources to the very counties and the very regions where this situation is happening, because it is sad when you see armored vehicles in GSU camps that are not moving. They don't have fuel. So it really is about really investing in this. But lastly, I think, as everybody said, the expansionist conversation keeps going on. So let's discuss this border issue. In the cutting of the hand that Nasrullah has said, let's agree to have the discussion around the borders, because the very communities want to use the resources, but the politicians use the borders as a way to rally communities. So let's discuss the borders and let's make sure, because this information is there with the government.
Okay.
So let's have a very good
and especially when we appear to be on the campaigns, and that is more or less tense or becomes intense, for that matter, during the campaigns. Honorable members of parliament and Ikale Angele, let's take a look at the feedback, and we thank you for keeping them coming on the hashtag Daybreak on Citizen TV, and the SMS code is 22422.
Actually,
yes, what's coming up? Yep.
DJ Kim, as we get more feedback, is saying, thank you for bringing the panel that understands the ground well.
and we literally sourced them from the region, so we thank them for their contribution.
So we have more there at Wanyelahe, Vans 2, the cabinet that was named yesterday by His Excellency President Ruto is a good one, but lacks the representation of hustlers. Good feedback.
And Ngolianga says, why is it so hard for the Pokot leadership to always come out and strongly condemn banditry and its consequences whenever it happens?
True.
Engineer Lazaro, insecurity in Baringo and other northern parts can be solved by empowering residents economically through proper infrastructure and irrigation. People mainly fight over scarcity of resources such as water.
That was a topic that was brought up. And Kenya Mushoki says, to end banditry, Kenya first needs to tackle poverty, hunger and unemployment. Dialogue and peace missions have failed to end banditry, according to him.
All right, and we have one feedback there from fellow_Muya. Cattle lords recruit and arm rural warriors to steal cattle for sale to abattoirs in towns or cross into neighboring countries where they sell the cattle.
And we have one more from Stemuni, who says, for once we have one person who understands he means the real problem. Now let's involve people like him to solve the problem. The issue is the mindset, as raised by the Honourable Member of Parliament, Joseph Makilap.
And at Isaac_Mudusi says the insecurity menace in Baringo, Kerio Valley and border of Turkana and West Pokot should be dealt with. We can't be losing lives daily.
And the last one, Kipto Ruto_ says police need to do a lot in order to restore peace in Pokot and Turkana counties. And the bandits seems to have been training since they were born. They have studied the terrain, and that's why they are outsmarting the police and the security agencies.
And as always, we appreciate your feedback on Daybreak as you're having this very important conversation. Maybe a quick reaction from our panelists concerning what the viewers have said. They seem to be saying you understand the ground well.
Thank you so much. And I think it is true that when you involve the correct people, you will get the correct information. So I agree with what the Deputy President said. We now need to move from Nairobi to the grassroots.
Thank you. Well noted. Honourable.
Well, I think the viewers have actually noted it very well, that the solutions are there, but it's only that the solutions are not implemented. They're not put into practice, and I think I call upon the government, I call upon our political leaders, myself included, to actually put this into practice, and we are going to get over this.
Yes, Honorable Lesuda.
I look forward to less talk and more action.
Okay.
I think everyone keeps talking about economic empowerment. Let's recognize that the livestock sector is a huge economic contribution to the GDP of this country. So let's not look at it as if we all need to be crop producers, and really look at how we can better the livestock production.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Ikal Angelei, a human rights defender. We were also having a sit-down with Honorable Naisula Lesuda, Member of Parliament for Samburu West Constituency, Asante Mheshimiwa, Honorable Titus Lote from Kachileba Constituency, and Mheshimiwa Joseph Makilap, Member of Parliament for Baringo North Constituency. We appreciate your time once again as you are talking about the security situation in the north, the driving factors, the proposed solutions, and the way forward. Now it's a matter of wait and see to secure the northern part of the country.
And thank you to you too for watching, waking up with us here on Daybreak, and your company is all appreciated. Your feedback is worthy. We talk, of course, lessons from them, and we thank you for watching Daybreak on Citizen Television. I am Ayub Abdikadir Abdi.
Thank you for your feedback. Thank you for watching. My name is Safin Acheng Ouma.